its own way. For Aristotle, for example, and it's really Aristotelian philosophy that is in trouble here. The earth is the unmoving center of the universe. The sun is the, right, if we sort of synthesize Plato and Aristotle, we could say the sun is what illuminates truth on earth, but that truth on earth is fixed and unmoving, right? All the truths that constitute reality on earth are conceived to be, as we've seen over and over again, eternal, unchanging, fixed. We see these truths manifested on earth. So, if the earth itself is in motion, if the earth itself is constantly changing in terms of position, then all of those universal truths start to seem more dubious. Right? We could put it bluntly and say Aristotle had a theory of the cosmos. That theory of the cosmos puts the earth at the center and makes all other heavenly bodies revolve around the earth. As soon as the earth is no longer at the center, then that whole cosmology is thrown into question, shown to be wrong. If Aristotle is wrong about the cosmos and wrong about the nature of the earth and the heavens, what else might he be wrong about? Aristotelian physics, Aristotelian astronomy were the accepted form of astronomy, right? Much like today, Einsteinian relativity, the theory of evolution, the theory of the Big Bang are accepted by us in a way that we assume that they are real and they explain reality. Right? We accept them more or less as a given. So, to imagine what it would have been like to encounter a truth, an idea that shows Aristotelian physics to be wrong, we would have to imagine encountering some evidence that indisputably proves Einsteinian relativity, evolution, the Big Bang theory to be wrong. Right? That in itself would likely force us to then question many other things, especially things that are attached to and based in those bedrock theories. So, sort of at the surface level, what's happening is that Aristotelian physics is thrown into question, and therefore we philosophers in the 17th century feel the need to call into question the rest of Aristotelian philosophy. But again, there is something deeper here, which is that the idea of truth, the idea of what is proper and good, derives from an idea about centeredness, the fact that the earth is centered and that we are thus centered ourselves based on our position to the earth, our relationship to the earth. So the stability of the earth and the stability of the cosmos surrounding the earth is also the foundation for any other kind of stability within classical philosophy, the stability of the soul, the stability of the mind, of culture, of political good. So, in short, all concepts of stability are thrown into question with the Copernican Revolution. Not only does this challenge Platonic and Aristotelian philosophy, it also, and even more explicitly, challenges Christian theology and Christian philosophy. Because in Christian theology, not only is it true that the earth is the center, but we human beings are the highest beings in existence, right? In the likeness of God, we have a rationality that puts us in touch with God. And so if rather than imagining ourselves at the center of things and as the most important beings occupying that center, if instead we have to imagine ourselves as revolving around the sun, just one more rock, like any of the other planets that's revolving around the sun, our significance is greatly reduced. Right? We are no longer, it's much more difficult now to believe that we are, in fact, the center of things, that we are really anything very special at all. Right? And it's this Copernican revolution and the thinking that is born out of that revolution that leads to things like the theory of evolution, the theory of relativity, and a complete upheaval in philosophical thinking. So, a challenge to our place in the universe, a challenge to all our ideas about stability, and this is a disaster for philosophy. Right? It is a major problem, to put it mildly. And I just think this whole history of how we respond to the Copernican Revolution is absolutely fascinating. It's what I wrote my dissertation on, in fact. And Descartes plays an important role. So, what is Descartes up to here? Now, let's jump into the first meditation. Descartes, in general, let me say one more thing about this. What is happening at this moment is the beginning of the age of science, when scientific truth exemplified by the Copernican Revolution begins to eclipse theological truth and even philosophical truth, particularly philosophical truth that comes from the classics, Plato and Aristotle. So really, we are seeing the beginning of the war between science and faith, which carries us through the 20th century. And Descartes' project is largely an attempt to explain a kind of philosophy of science, to put philosophy in the service of the sciences, and to come up with a philosophy that can be consistent with scientific truth, scientific observation, and that the whole scientific method, scientific thinking. So, all right, let's jump into the first meditation here. Now, the conceit of the meditations is that Descartes has secluded himself in a cabin in the winter to, in essence, go on a kind of meditation retreat, right? What today we would call a meditation retreat. He's not with other people. He is entirely alone. And the point of this meditation retreat is to meditate on first principles, on the nature of being, and to attempt to find in being something that has been missed by all previous philosophy. So he says, on page 17, some years ago I was struck by the large number of falsehoods that I had accepted as true in my childhood, and by the highly doubtful nature of the whole edifice that I had subsequently based on them. Okay, so first sentence, right out the gate. I have my entire life accepted a large number of falsehoods as true. I have always believed the earth is the center of the cosmos. I have always believed the sun revolved around the earth. I accepted these falsehoods as true, and I accepted also the now highly doubtful nature of the whole edifice that I had subsequently based on them. And so this is essentially everything that I've said thus far in 2 lines. Right? I accepted a few things as being absolutely true. They turned out to be falsehoods, and now I see that the entire edifice of concepts built on those falsehoods is also crumbling. I realized that it was necessary, once in the course of my life, to demolish everything completely and start again right from the foundations if I wanted to establish anything at all in the sciences that was stable and likely to last. Okay, so what is the response to this recognition that I've been believing falsehoods my whole life, and that I then have to basically, as he says, demolish everything I think I know in order to account for these falsehoods. And the way to do this is to return to the foundations. And he says what he intends to accomplish here. Right? He doesn't want to return to the foundations in order to prove the nature of the soul, for example, or the objective human good, or some idea of absolute good. He wants to find instead anything at all in the sciences that was stable and likely to last. And so how do we get reliable scientific knowledge? How can we have certainty? How can we return to stability? Okay, maybe we can relate to this, right? This is something that we are certainly experiencing over the last 5 years, right? When a lot of articles of faith that we believed were certain for example, a celebrity reality TV star can't be elected president, uh, right? I mean, how do you respond to a world in which that is possible? Our medical system is the best in the world and is going to be able to manage any crisis that is thrown at it. And what we're seeing right now is that's not probably the case. And so all of these things that we sort of, went about our daily lives thinking, well, basically politics runs, according to a set number of principles that are going to be stable forever after. And, right, we have a good safety net, maybe. In general, America is a functioning society. Not to say that we're not, but, right, these kinds of challenges, these kinds of moments of failure, and look, I don't mean to be overly political. I mean, my own opinions about these things don't really matter. I think that we can nevertheless all agree that the last 5 years have showed that a lot of things that we considered stable and reliable and safe and certain have turned out to not be. And what we find ourselves needing to do is reflect, meditate, think about what might be more stable, right? Find a new foundation that can't be corroded and turn out to be a falsehood in the way that these things have. So Descartes is looking for stability, and specifically stability in the sciences. This led me to put the project off for so long, blah, blah, blah. So today I've expressly rid my mind of all worries and arranged for myself a clear stretch of free time. Sound familiar? I am here quite alone, and at last I will devote myself sincerely and without reservation to the general demolition of my opinions. Now, what is he demolishing? He is demolishing his opinions. We remember the distinction between knowledge and opinion from Plato, but given that what counted as knowledge, for example, the earth is the center of the universe, it is stable and fixed, that now is no longer knowledge. That now is opinion. What we see is that what used to count as knowledge no longer counts as knowledge. And so when Descartes is talking about his opinions, he's talking about literally every single thing that he's ever thought his whole life. He'll say that this includes, well, let's go on. But to accomplish this, it will not be necessary for me to show that all my opinions are false, right? It's not that everything I believe is wrong, which is something I could perhaps never manage. Reason now leads me to think that I should hold back my assent from opinions which are not completely certain and indubitable, just as carefully as I do from those which are patently false. So Descartes is introducing right off the bat here a new measure for what counts as knowledge, what counts as truth, right? Anything that is not completely certain and indubitable. Now that's the key word here, indubitable. Beyond doubt, meaning it cannot be doubted. Anything not completely certain and indubitable must count as an opinion. I will not call anything knowledge except that which I can have absolute certainty about. It's a much stricter metric than we get in previous philosophy.